President Obama's handling of this war has not been deft. He has not been the person making strategic decisions that have led to some kind of a huge turnaround. The surge was made, I think, along largely political decisions. He spent a year in an Afghan review. The review figured out things that people knew before the review even started, which is that you had to provide localized security and that things over there were not going well, by the way. So I think that the president has largely gotten a pass on this, just saying 2014 we're going to get out. The war has not been handled well, and we are seeing that now. From a strategic level, from the decisions being made, I don't think that President Obama has been held to account on that. But it also begs another question. Why have both sides of the political aisle accepted 2014, for the most part, not everyone, accepted 2014 as a date of withdrawal? We should be talking about what the strategic endgame is here. What are we actually trying to accomplish in Afghanistan? I would say this. If John McCain, as he is right now, is willing to discuss a shorter timeline for withdrawal based upon the recognition that we won the war in Afghanistan years ago, we defeated al-Qaeda, we defeated the Taliban, we are now in a nation-building effort. And we are spending American lives and American treasure for something that looks increasingly impossible to actually achieve in the end, which is some sort of a stable Afghanistan capable of defending itself. And I'd offer you guys this. I think it's time for the Republicans to take a long look at this and say, look, Obama hasn't handled this well. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with saying that maybe it's time that we actually decide to bring the troops home now, in the next 6 months.
Here's the question. Did we defeat the Taliban, or do these green on blue attacks indicate that we did not? Not saying that we should stay, or what should then be, you know, the consequence to that. What does this activity tell you?
Well, this is the key problem, is that when you have Pakistan as a sanctuary, which it is, for the Taliban, for allied forces, for the Haqqani network, for these groups that continue to attack our forces, it's a festering sore, and it's right next door. So yes, when I said we defeated the Taliban, we defeated their infrastructure, their support networks for al-Qaeda. We eliminated their ability to have sort of large training camps to train international jihadis. That was all done very early in this campaign. But the mission shifted, and it became something else. And now we're in a place where we're worried about the Afghan economy, we're worried about security down to the village level, and our soldiers are patrolling out there right now, and they're not being told really what the expectations are other than we're leaving in 2014. I think it's not right. And Mitt Romney and the Republicans are not discussing this issue in the way they should. They've sort of ceded to President Obama that he's doing a good job managing this war, that he didn't make these calculations on a political timeline, and that there's nothing left to do except hope that we win this thing in 2014. I just think it's nonsense.
But, Buck, what is the, and I'm not sure I disagree with you, but what is the concern that once we leave, and if we leave hastily, and I don't know that 2014 is hastily, but if we leave without making sure everything's sort of battened down, that al-Qaeda or the Taliban reinvents and moves right back in the second we're gone?
Al-Qaeda exists right now in Somalia, in Yemen, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, which we're hearing threads of may have been involved in Libya attack. We may very well hear more of that soon. The idea that there'll be some kind of an Al-Qaeda infiltration in Afghanistan is going to be a reality forever. We can never eliminate that possibility entirely. And if you're not going to invade Pakistan, which I do not advocate, and I don't think anybody does,
have you seen the riots there?
You're always going to continue to have this problem. And I just feel like Republicans on this issue have not been willing to touch it because they equate pulling out of a war zone with somehow not finishing the job. And I would argue, I mean, look, the head of Stratfor said just recently, U.S. strategic interest in Afghanistan has been achieved. It's disrupted al-Qaeda in that country, and now we need to withdraw.
For now.
I'm not the only one.
So al-Qaeda or the Taliban coming back into Afghanistan actually refocuses the goal of the original mission, which was counterterrorism. And right now we're caught in this counterinsurgency war, right? And we were very successful at a counterterrorism war. We did root out al-Qaeda. We did root out Taliban from Afghanistan. So if they did re-infiltrate, why couldn't we have another counterterrorism mission? Just stay out of counterinsurgency.
Why haven't we said that then? Why haven't we said, all right, let's leave, let's go, because this nation-building effort is a waste of time, but we promise you, if al-Qaeda and the Taliban get a foothold in this nation again, we've got drones, we're obviously not afraid to use them, we will do this again.
There was a conscious decision made at the beginning of the Afghan review, and Joe Biden, I have to say, actually was one of the people who was on the side of the CT-heavy strategy, the counterterrorism strategy, as opposed to what Will talks about, which is counterinsurgency side. And that was essentially what it would be. Using drones, using whatever tools we have at our disposal, short of patrolling, being in villages, trying to build wells, training other troops, building the economy, trying to create electricity. This is a country where 80% of people don't have electricity. But I think Joe Biden in this case may have been right. Yeah, I'm not unwilling to say that. It might have been time to pull out sooner.
I'm still questioning the objectives, and I think we're going to have to leave it with this. But my question is, why are so many, everyday average Afghanis actually helping the militant groups? If we're helping them, why aren't they helping us?
There was a campaign just this past summer, and it dealt with an uprising in Ghazni. A bunch of villagers in eastern Afghanistan near the Pakistan border, they started fighting against the Taliban on their own. Of course, the troops are very excited about this because we'd much rather have Afghans fighting against the Taliban. That's the whole strategy, right? But even Afghan villagers, I'm not talking about Afghan military necessarily. Right. But the problem came down to this. The Taliban recognized they had overplayed their hand in some areas. They said, look, we're not going to be quite as harsh with the people. They are playing a political game, too. And if they can make certain accommodations with certain villagers, which they are willing to do in certain areas, then all of a sudden we have a big problem because they're allowed to infiltrate back in.